What I've got next to me is a copy of my fourth novel. It's called Howling on a Concrete Moon. And what it is, it's a first-person narrative from the point of view of a rather shy 17-year-old girl in 1982. She's attempting to write her memoirs after dealing with some trauma in her life.
That's very meta, writing about a writer.
Yes.
And so what inspired this character and the 80s? What do you particularly love about that sort of time in history?
I don't. That's the funny thing. I lived through the 80s and they were detestable, but I thought it would be easy to relate to. I had toyed with the idea of writing from the first person for a long time, and this one's told in present tense as well, which is a very interesting technique. It takes the reader right into the moment and helps the reader experience the actions and the emotions that the character is feeling. I initially started writing something about this many years ago when it had a more contemporary setting with an adult narrator, and I got thinking, I thought I might just deal with it when she was 17, which was 1982, and I don't know how it came about. I just got thinking about the day Whitlam got sacked.
So there is a bit of a historical turning point.
Yes, the character, like I said, it's 1982, but she's sitting at her father's typewriter thinking about the day she met the girl who has become her best friend, and it was a significant day, November 11, 1975. So I just incorporate, even though it's not about the Whitlam dismissal, I just thought it was something I'd incorporate into it.
Yeah, that really takes people back to that time.
Yes.
You say the 80s were not your favourite decade. What's her life like in the 80s?
Her life, it is a bit difficult in that, well, she's 17, and let's face it, that is difficult. And she's very shy. She doesn't have a lot of confidence, and she just has fractious relationships with her family, and like I said, there is some trauma going on in her life, which is hinted at, but you have to read the book to find out what that is.
We won't give any of that away.
No.
And so what inspired you to write a book about that? And trauma, like you say, is a topic that's coming more and more out into the open these days as well. It's quite topical.
Yes. Well, I actually started writing this book before the Me Too movement anyway. So I guess that was just serendipity, to be honest. But I thought, well, with all story, you need conflict, and I thought, well, I'll make this the conflict in the story, and so there, it wasn't really any political reason, and it was just, like I said, it was just timing that the book's released around with the Me Too movement.
So who's this book aimed at? Are you hoping that maybe other teenagers will be inspired by her?
I'd like to think they would be. It's not just for teenagers or young adults. Even though the narrator is a teenager, it's aimed really at an adult audience. But I'd say from 15 upwards. If it was a movie, it'd have an MA+ rating.
Okay. Oh, that could be your next project. So, Simone, tell me a bit about your background too. This is not your first book.
No, it's my fourth, and I generally write adult satire. And I have done some young adult in the past as well. My first and third books were satire, but the second one was a young adult. And like I said, it was just a technique with trying something different, first person, present tense. It was just something I wanted to try.
So normally you've written more in third person, more traditional type formats.
Yes, that's exactly right, yes.
And how are people receiving it so far?
I'm getting some very good feedback on it so far, and I'm hoping that good feedback will continue, of course. No, people have read it, they have liked it, and I'm waiting for some more reviews to come in.
And so what would you say to someone who's considering reading it? What's in it for them?
Well, probably a lot depends on the age of the reader. If they're in their teens in the 80s, I think they'd get a good laugh out of it. And if they grew up in a small town, they'd probably get a good laugh out of it too. The woman Leonie, who very kindly did the launch for me, she said what she noticed was that it just really captured being in a small town, because obviously that's where the narrator lives.
So I guess a lot of locals here in the Upper Hunter could probably relate then.
I think they will, yes.
Is it the small town that she's in, is it fictional, or is it based on somewhere around here perhaps?
Well, writers tend to draw on what they know. I don't think I've even mentioned the town that she lives in, because it wasn't the issue. It's not what it's about. When I was picturing what the street layout was like, I thought of my own hometown, which is Merriwar, but again, it's not actually set in Merriwar.
It could be sort of any town, New South Wales.
Any town with a pub, which is pretty much anyone. A lot of the action does take part in the local pub because her best friend's family have bought the local pub, so she just goes and stays with her friend a lot.
Right, sounds like a real Australian kind of tale.
Yeah, even though, like I said, the narrator is a young girl, but really I wouldn't give it to a primary school student. It's got language and sexual and dark themes in it.
What's next for you? You've got this one out there. You've got other projects on the go?
I've been writing some short stories and publishing them on Kindle, and I've been toying with the idea of going back to my first ever novel and revisiting those characters 10 years on.